Hey skiers, I'm Jeff from skiessentials.com.
I'm Bob. How's it going?
We're here today to talk about these brand new Nordica Unleashed 98 skis.
Yep.
Did that kind of preview video a while back, kind of shared some initial thoughts on them. Gosh, since that day, how many days on them do you have?
Maybe 10?
Yeah, and I'd say I'm probably above that.
Yeah.
10 to 15. Bob's been skiing that 186 over there. This happens to be my personal pair of of Unleashed 98s. So super fun. I've been having a blast on them.
And a great binding color combination right there,
I
too.
thought so too. I was wondering what the best color pivot would be for these, and can't think of anything that would be better than the gold.
No, right. You got it right in the middle of the Olympics too, so it was nice and the theme worked.
Yeah, I got it on my birthday.
Great.
Yeah, thanks, look. So very exciting, these new skis. If you watched that kind of preview video or read the article, you probably have a sense of the construction and kind of the design and the purpose of this ski. But Bob, why don't you take us through construction again, and then we'll take a quick look at shape, and then we'll get right into performance. And I think we can get through the shape and construction pretty quickly.
Yeah, and we, just before this, we were talking about how these are kind of a blend of Enforcer and Soul Rider. When we did the preview video, we also brought in Santa Ana because a lot of Santa Ana construction gets filtered in through here.
Yeah.
So we still have the performance wood core, so a pretty dense wood core. We have the carbon fiberglass that adds to that wood core, really makes this thing snap and adds that stiffness to it. And then the most Santa Ana thing is the terrain-specific metal. So while Soul Rider had no metal, Enforcer has 2, Santa Ana and now Unleashed has 1. So it's that one partial laminate of metal, full width, tapers to the middle, and then full width in the tail. So it really adds a new component to these twin tip skis, adds to the stability, the dampness, the power, some things that most skiers felt the Soul Rider lacked, or maybe the Enforcer had too much. So pretty ingenious way of bulking up a Soul Rider without taking it to full Enforcer level. And as we found in our time on this, it works really well.
Yeah. No, that's a really good way to describe construction, and it turns out that it's a really good way to describe performance too. Super fun skis. I think that blend of Soul Rider and Enforcer is pretty much exactly what it is. It's kind of funny, like thinking back to when we got the Enforcer 104, I was so excited about that ski. I still love that ski. I should probably start with that. Like, that thing's awesome. I own a pair. I'll continue to own a pair, and in addition to these. But when Nordica came out with that Enforcer 104, I might have even put it in our review. I was like, this is the ski that I've been asking for. Like, I've been literally asking companies to make twin tips with more advanced construction. Yeah. And when the Enforcer 104 came out, I was like, this is it. This is what I've been saying. Like, yeah, this is what we need. Turns out this is actually what I wanted. Like I was saying, that Enforcer 104 is awesome. It's a blast to rip around on that ski. But this strikes such a nice balance between still retaining pretty darn good park performance, but then upping its all-mountain capabilities, its strength, stuff like that. So I've been having a blast on them. Take a quick look at shape. It is, more of a twin tip shape than that Enforcer 104. I think that's important to point out, especially noticeable back here in the tail, quite a bit of splay. It really is, it's like they're blending the splay from a Soul Rider with the taper from an Enforcer.
Yeah.
That Soul Rider had a little bit more extended side cut in the tips and tails. And it does feel a little bit more centered than something like an Enforcer 104. I think it's less of a park-specific shape than the Soul Rider, but still leans more towards kind of park-specific shape
Yeah.
in my opinion.
And my biggest knock on the Soul Rider as an all-mountain ski was that it was very twin-tippy. That
Right,
splay was very abrupt.
Exactly.
This tones it down a bit without totally taking it out.
Yeah, and we get, a little bit longer rocker up here in the tip, stuff like that. I thought it was interesting to kind of point out the difference in mount points. So, Bob, you've been skiing those just on the recommended line.
Yep.
This recommended mount point is 7 centimeters back from true center.
On your 179.
Yeah, this 180, the running length, or not running length actually, just tip to tail. If you take a tape measure and straighten it out, it came out to 178, which is pretty normal. So running length would probably be exactly 180. So it's 7 centimeters back from true center. Mine are a replacement for my Soul Riders. I was skiing Soul Rider 97s for years and years and years. Soul Riders I always mounted dead true center, and they worked really well. This one I ended up going like 1.5 centimeters back from true center because the tip rocker is longer than the tail rocker. And I subscribe to the school of thought that you should never go further forward than the center of camber.
Right.
So I would confidently say don't go further forward than how I have these set up. So a little different than the Soul Rider, but still works as a more center-mounted ski.
Right.
So I'll talk about that a little bit maybe towards the end of the video. I thought we should start with just your experience on them, Bob, because you've been skiing them as 100% directional ski.
Yep.
And while there will be people that do what I'm doing with them, I think more people are going to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And what a treat, either way, I think. But, for a directional ski, 98 underfoot, this is what we're looking for a fun, playful, true all-mountain ski. Whether you use the twin tip in a backward skiing format or just, as I like to use them in the woods, to just back out of tricky spots and move on with your run.
Yep.
I think the flex makes this thing very approachable, but also gives it a nice high-end feel on the groomers. So that's kind of where I'll start. You're able to access the whole side cut. We talk about that a lot with, a carving capability of a ski. Can you bend it enough to really get that nice, round, clean side cut? 18.8, I believe it is, in this 186.
On that one, yeah.
Meter turn radius, so definitely makes those clean, round turns. And, the metal really helps with the grip. You can push this thing pretty hard, definitely harder than a Soul Rider.
Yeah.
Not quite the same as that Enforcer 100 or even 104.
Yep.
But a nice mix of the two. And that's kind of what you're looking for with this 98 millimeter twin tip, which, for years we've touted as a great option for most skiers on most days.
Yeah, we had that conversation with Ben Shetler's, plenty of other skiers.
Yeah.
They're just a lot of fun.
Yep, yeah, the list goes on in terms of these, and I think that the metal of this one sets it apart from a lot of the competition, which is very nice. I would say half of my days were not spent on camera, which is good news for me, bad news for viewers and people that wanted to see this thing skied through nice snow in the trees.
We got a little bit.
But I had like 2 or 3 days where I was a little bit selfish and
solo.
Got out there and just ripped around on the mountain on these and loved them.
Sometimes you gotta do it.
Sometimes you gotta do it, yeah. And so, super maneuverable, not quite as I would say not quite as drifty as a Enforcer 104, unlimited or free.
Yeah, that has much longer rocker.
Yeah, so you're getting that tip hooking up a little bit quicker and a little bit more abruptly than that drifty or free shape, which is fine, especially in where we are. We got tighter woods, tighter bumps. You do want that reaction time to be brought down a little bit, and I think that's where this comes in handy. So just really a ton of fun in the bumps and trees. Floats well for what it is. It's still, it's not over 100. It has metal in it, but it still floats pretty darn good. Yeah. Pop back out on the trails on those snowy days, and no problem cutting through the crud and chop at all. You can operate these at pretty darn high speeds. in relatively adverse conditions and terrain, which is great.
Yep.
But yeah, great in the bumps, great in the trees. Awesome to pop out. They're still wet from a nice spring day we had today, where they just blasted through, spring snow.
Yep. Despite that metal, sub 1900 grams in this 180 centimeter length. So
I bet this one is right around
2000. I think that's accurate.
Yep.
But they're not the heaviest thing in the world.
Yep.
And I also think in those situations, in trees and bumps and stuff like that, I was even watching you today and watching the tail of your ski. There's a bit of a softer flex back here in the tail.
Yep.
And I think that really helps kind of give it that user-friendly, slightly more forgiving feel. I at least know that I benefit from that. Gives the ski a little easier to get the tail to swing around and stuff like that.
But still, like, way more stable than the Soul Rider, and that was what I would always tell people.
Yeah.
That would say, hey, you're 6'2", 225 pounds. Why are you skiing a twin tip without metal, like all mountain? Don't you find a lack of stability? And I say, yeah. In the ski, like, I feel stable,
right?
But the ski doesn't, and I think this makes it. It takes it to that next level of stability, which is great for people who are looking for that type of thing.
Yeah, and a lot of that's just vibration damping, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's often what people perceive as stability.
Yeah.
If the ski is quiet and smooth, it comes across as stable and powerful. And these with the metal added to it is certainly smoother than Soul Riders.
Yeah.
And it gives you a little bit more confidence. I certainly feel that. It's something that I always said about the Soul Riders is I thought it was the best carving park ski. Mm-hmm. They had quite a bit of carbon in that ski, kind of a higher camber height too. So it had some snap to it. You could push it pretty hard. It had good edge grip. This, it doesn't blow it out of the water, but this carves like a dream.
Yeah.
This is, I guess, a good time to transition to my experience on it.
Sure.
For me personally as a skier, that's about as good as it gets. Like, it literally does everything that I want to do when I'm skiing, and it does it pretty darn well.
Right.
Like, it carves really, really good for a twin tip ski. Like, it makes just such round, nice turns. Like, the kids I coach, they don't care about carving.
Right.
But when I'm skiing this with them and make carves, they think it's cool. So that says something to me. Like, if this thing can lay over carves that a bunch of teenagers think are cool and is changing their perception about carving skiing, then it's really good.
Right.
Super high edge angles, comes across the fall line really easily. This one's an 18.1 meter turn radius, so a little quicker than that ski. I do find that being centered on it, I have to stay a little bit more balanced, a little bit more centered in my weighting when I'm carving, which some people won't like. And when you're on the recommended spot, it's not like that at all. You can push the tip of it, but if you're going to mount it center, I guess be aware, or mount it more centered like me, be aware that it's more of a lateral initiation,
right?
Which I never have any problem with. And interestingly, sometimes when I mount a ski this centered, it feels like there's a lot of ski behind you, in moguls, trees, stuff like that. This feels perfectly agile still. It's interesting.
Yeah, well, just the way you flexed that tail earlier, and
right.
That was similar to how I felt about the Soul Rider as well, was, his tail's got flex. You can really push out of the turn,
right,
and not feel like it's, being jagged in that release.
Right. I would say the biggest drawback for me being on this length at this mount point is the lack of ski in front of me.
Yeah.
So sometimes you'll get a little bit more tip dive with this length and this mount point.
Right.
And I noticed that, I kind of have to be careful about where I'm just throwing the skis because I don't want to go over the handlebars, but I own an Enforcer 104 that's not center mounted, that's a 186, so I can easily justify kind of center mounting these.
Yeah, I would imagine in softer snow on that pair, you would have to be more conscious versus
totally
having that.
And I've skied that length in that mount point, so I know you kind of can feel that difference.
Right.
But yeah, super fun. And then, to kind of stick with what I like to do when I ski, I like to ski park. I certainly am not as good at it as I used to be. It's just slowly losing tricks and enthusiasm, I guess. But no, super fun. I mean, we talked quite a bit about park skiing when we did that Bent 90 review. This certainly feels heavier.
Yeah.
Like that Bent 90 is so light, so quick. But I may have mentioned it in that review. I don't mind having a heavier ski. I've got a metal pivot on there,
right.
So it's never going to be the lightest thing in the world. But I've found it's super fun in the park. Very balanced, not like heavy swing weight. Really good in the air. A little bit more solid on landings than a lighter ski like that Bent, which gives me a lot of confidence. So it might not be as much of a park ski as the Soul Rider, but it's certainly enough park ski in my opinion.
Yeah.
Probably not like a competition slopestyle ski, but that's not really what Nordica was setting out to make when they made it. And Nordica doesn't really have any like competitive slopestyle athletes anymore, so it kind of makes sense.
Right, definitely more of a broad audience in this.
Yeah, totally. And it's to bring up the Bents again, it feels similar to that conversation. Like, look what Bob does with it at that mount point, and look at the other side of the spectrum, look what you can do when you push those bindings a little bit more centered.
Right.
So
even different skiers and different sizes like us. I mean, we
totally.
have very different, needs and wants and different body styles, and
totally.
The same ski works great for both of us. And I think that's, and the more skis that we have that in common with, like, I think that's impressive to see.
Yeah, it's always a sign of a really good ski.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always, maybe it comes across in our reviews that Bob and I love everything, but like there are times when a ski kind of feels like it works better for me or vice versa works better for you. And yeah, it's just always impressive when something bridges that gap. And to me, it pretty much means that anyone can ski it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, and bringing that to these people that are either looking at enforcers or something of that caliber with 2 sheets of metal that want that stability, but they still want something playful, whether it's a 104 free or something else.
Yeah.
That this should definitely be on the list. As to not be overlooked. I think that kind of these 98 millimeter twin tips do get overlooked, for one reason or another, and that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
Just a huge range of application and performance for something like this.
Yeah, and I feel like we're kind of getting to the point in the ski industry and the ski world in general where there's more acceptance for stuff like this, and I think there's a few skis that have helped that, like Ranger 102.
Yep.
That, like, so many people love that ski, and like, it's a twin tip.
Right.
It's a directional twin tip, but it's a twin tip. It's earned a strong following, and I think that's going to be probably a similar phenomenon with these, where it has the construction to back it up. It's got the Nordica pedigree. Nordica's been making, we don't use the word best very often, but
very strong.
Objectively,
strong
Nordica's they're making some of the best skis over the last decade, I'd say. Those enforcers, like, people essentially tried to copy them, sort of.
Right.
So probably means that you're making a pretty darn good ski. So I think with that kind of heritage and then the construction in these things, I think it's gonna turn some heads, so to speak.
Yeah. But I mean, the fun factor is just off
through
the
the
charts
roof.
on these.
Yeah.
Yep.
In a different way than those Bents.
Right.
Because we probably said the same exact thing about Bents. But, a ski like that has a little bit more of a speed limit.
Yep.
Where this, you can let them run a little bit. So it's kind of, give and take.
Right.
Like, you'll lose some quickness going to this, but you gain some stability and vibration damping and stuff like that.
It's all about choosing your own adventure out there.
Yeah, like those books.
Yeah. Love those books.
Me too. Those books were sweet. Do you remember the skateboarding one? Really going off topic.
Not specifically,
here.
no.
There was if you guys know what we're talking about, those Choose Your Own Adventure children's book series.
Yeah.
There was one that involved skateboarding, and I swear I went through that book and did like every different choice, and every single time I like ended up in the same situation, like bombing some big steep hill.
That's the point. They want to get you going down that hill.
Yeah, it's like every choice you made funneled
Right.
you to the same outcome. Anyways, hope you guys can choose your own adventure on these Unleashed 98s. Anything you want to end with, Bob?
Not particularly, just kind of, as you said with the Enforcer 104, like I wanted them to make that ski. Like I feel that we felt that way about the Soul Riders, and that this is answering that call.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks for listening, ski industry. So let us know if you have any questions about them. If you're curious about like what mount point would work best for you. I think this is one where we'll probably get a fair amount of those questions, and reasonably so.
Yep.
I'm happy to share my opinion. And yeah, great ski. So let us know if you have any questions, and we'll see you out there on the slopes.
Bye.